Hey, folks, what's going on? Welcome all to this beautiful Thursday evening here in the Maritimes. I'm your host, Ben Wu, for another episode of Fish East Live. I've had a blast doing these podcasts since we started, and it seems with every week it gets more and more interesting because the ideas that are coming and the feedback that we're getting from you guys is really tremendous, so we do appreciate it, of course. As you know, Fish East is here to represent the multi-species angling that we have here in Atlantic Canada. And this episode that we've prepared for you folks tonight is going to be a special one. It's a special one because we did a test. We did a test a few weeks back when we did our first show dedicated to a singular species, and that was the striper show. You might remember myself, Don, and Matt Cito did that one, and we got such great feedback from you guys that we're probably going to do a 2.0, a version 2, a second part to that. What we're talking about tonight is something extraordinary and something very unique. And we're talking about muskellunge, or the muskie. When I first heard that there was muskie in New Brunswick, I was actually a little bit in disbelief. Like, I was not aware that this strain of fish was present this far east. But not only are they are here in force. And tonight we have some special guests with us, which are, of course, all Fish East contributors. You've seen their photos, and whether you're jealous, envious, or excited by them, I can tell you that these three gentlemen that will be joining us tonight are ready to share a wealth of knowledge. Hopefully we get to educate everybody, maybe demystify some of the rumors or the myths about muskies and muskies within New Brunswick and the St. John River system. And most importantly, let's find out if we can learn a little bit more about how to target these species. I just want to put it out there. I am not a muskie fisherman. I only recently dabbled into some muskie fishing. For those who know me, of course, I am a multi-species angler, but I have always told all my muskie friends that I will only be getting into muskie once I turn 50. I am not 50 yet, but I moved here, and muskies are in the waters that I swim just a few minutes away. And with all the influences that I have, and some of them being the ones that are joining us tonight, I had no choice but to be a hypocrite and get on the muskie bandwagon. All right. So to get the show on the way, of course, I can't do this alone. I have to bring in my partner in crime as usual. Let's go ahead and bring in the man himself, Mr. Donnie Patterson. What's going on?
How you doing tonight?
Oh, Donnie. See the smile?
I know. It's going to be different. I'm really looking forward to this. I mean, like you said, dabbled recently. Both of us did with a muskie outing. But there is so much more to learn. And I don't think we're even going to get the tip of the iceberg tonight, even with three guys as knowledgeable as our guests. I think we're just going to scratch the surface.
We're going to do our best, you and I. You're going to do what you do, monitor the comments, make sure if there's any questions that you folks have. Donnie's on it. He'll make sure he'll probably bring them up to the guests that we have to try to get those questions answered. And I'll do my best to moderate and ask the right questions. We've got a whole bunch of content that these guys have provided ahead of time that we're going to put up on screen for you guys to see. But right before we put them on, I wanted to let everybody know we've had a lot of messages about our swag and our hoodies. Our hoodies have been out of stock for a long time. Guess what? We finally got our hoodie order. So if you're interested in hooking up with one of our gray or black Fish East hoodies and represent that multi-species lifestyle, make sure you hit us up with a message on our Facebook. We sell them, I believe, Donnie, where are they? $59.99, $60.
$60.
Yeah, $60 for a hoodie. Represent. All right, that was my plug of the day. All right, without further ado, I was trying to figure out how we're going to do this tonight, Donnie. But I think I'm just going to introduce them one at a time. Bring them on.
Bring them in.
Bring them in. No. Okay, let's not wait anymore. Let's start with one of my newest and youngest friends, who I have learned a phenomenal amount of fishing with, and I can't believe how young he is and how much he knows. I'll let him talk about it. I'm going to bring in our Fishies contributor, Mr. Ben Thornton. What's going on, Ben?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Oh, well, looks like we're going to be spending a little bit of time tonight talking about, some toothy fish that swims in these waters.
Just a few minutes worth.
That's a few minutes worth. Ben, I met you earlier in the spring. Ben helped me rediscover bass fishing. You might have followed some of my exploits learning how to fly fish in New Brunswick. And Ben introduced me to some spring fly fishing for smallmouth bass. Can't thank you enough for that, Ben. That was absolutely awesome. Now, what area are you from? What area are you from? Just so you know where we're representing.
I'm from Woodstock, New Brunswick. Currently, still live here. And fish locally around here, but I do travel the whole St. John River in search of these massive predators, I guess.
So let me get this right. You fly fish, because I've seen you with the trout and the rainbows and the bass, but I see that kind of when boating season starts, you're kind of dedicated to muskies, aren't you?
Yeah, it's this weird obsession. I mean, all year long, you wait for that water temperature to hit 60 degrees, and anything before and after that is just the side. Like you wait for that. You wait for that day where you can go out casting for early season muskies, and that's what our addiction is, I guess.
Well, addiction is certainly the right word for it. And the next person we're about to bring on is another victim of said addiction. He joined us for a recent shoot that we did in Fredericton. Donnie had the pleasure of spending an entire day casting his arms off, had to recover 3 days from his shoulder spasms because this man is a casting machine. Mr. Ryan Wickholm, welcome to Fish East Live, sir.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So was I overstepping? Was I right to say that you also suffer from this disease that Ben does?
Oh, I've got it big time.
Worse than anyone.
Now, what
disease, fever,
whatever you want to call it. What area are you from, Ryan?
I'm in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and like Ben said, I'll travel as far as I have to along the St. John River to catch one. But I do a lot of my fishing in downtown Fredericton.
Downtown Fredericton. Yes, we see that from your pictures. Well, I guess last but not least, we have no choice but to bring in the other guy we kind of booked for this show. He's no big deal. He just happens to be, a guide on the St. John River, takes people muskie fishing, somehow manages to catch these elusive fish on a fly of all things. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. And perhaps more importantly, his role as a current acting president of the New Brunswick St. John River chapter of Muskies Canada. Let's bring on our good friend, Marlon Prince. Marlon, welcome to Fishies Live.
Good evening, guys. How's everybody doing?
Oh, well, pretty excited to get this show on the road. We brought in the young guy. We brought in the hardcore local, and of course, we're going to talk about other things. Ryan also is a bait maker, which we're going to get into a little bit later on the segment. But we brought in these two guys. But these two guys said they wouldn't do a show unless we had you as well.
That's sweet of you guys. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, guys. This is certainly an anticipated episode for Fish East, and hopefully we can answer a lot of questions people have about muskies out there. I know there's still, I guess, the newest sport fish to East Coast waters.
I definitely say it's of the newest and probably of the most mysterious, might I say. I think that's the word I wanted to use, the mysterious muskie. All right, so let's arrange this screen so everybody can follow along. And once again, guys, I remind you, got Donnie's monitoring all the comments. If you have any questions, hit us up in the comment section. And we're here for the next, 90 minutes or so. So strap in because we're about to get real down and dirty with the big ass apex predator called the muskie. All right, so
yeah, well, so far I would say Jason Wilcox has hit the nail right on the head. Muskie's Anonymous Support Group is what this episode is. So.
Muskie's Anonymous.
That's
very,
good.
Very cool. Awesome. All right, so where do we begin? I mean, muskies are of course of the most cherished, and most revered sport fish that we have in Canada. So many tales of fish of 10,000 casts. There's a certain allure to even catching one, never mind a trophy size one. I guess a great place to start this evening's episode is to get a better understanding of how muskies even came to be. How do they swim these waters? Because like I said, not living here, I wasn't even aware that there were muskies this far east. Maybe Marlon, you could start us off a little bit with the history of how muskies came to be in the St. John River.
Sure thing, Ben. I'm the same way. I mean, growing up in Ontario, muskies were always revered. You'd go into the tackle shops, you see these big fish up on the walls. I never grew up fishing for them, but when I found out they were in New Brunswick, I wanted to know more. I want to know how to catch them, and here we are today. So, what we've learned is back in the 1960s, there's a lake in Quebec called Lac Frontier. It's one of the headwaters of the St. John River. Quebec DNR throughout the 60s, I think there was 2 stocking programs that they put muskies in that lake. From there, they migrated down through the St. John River in Maine. Some of the tributaries there still have muskies in them. The river certainly still has muskies in them, and some of the ponds and lakes attached to the river still have muskies in them. From there, they basically made their way through the multiple head ponds in the St. John River, through the Beechwood head pond, into the Mactaquac head pond, and finally into the lower St. John River. I'd say I believe it was the late 1980s. The first documented muskie was captured trying to migrate upstream from the lower St. John. So that's basically from Fredericton up into Mactaquac. Early 2000s, some of the bass anglers, some of the tournament anglers, the real hardcore guys that were out there a lot, noticed they kept seeing these big fish, these big muskies. They decided let's upsize our gear. That would have been Clark Rayner, Henry Arsenault back in the day. They started Muskies NB. They recognized, what we had here was special, that these muskies were reaching some pretty large proportions, and they were here in numbers. They were thriving. So Muskies NB goal was just to raise awareness, get people out on the water fishing muskies. I can't remember the exact year, but again, it was pre-2010. Muskies NB started talking with people from Muskies Canada, which is a national organization in Quebec and Ontario. Their goals are to protect the muskie, educate the public about muskie. Basically, the motto is let them go, let them grow. Catch and release is just so huge with these fish, and obviously, being an invasive species at the time, they weren't fully welcomed in New Brunswick. So joining forces with Muskies Canada, we were able to do research. We were able to get hands-on with these fish, do tagging studies, as well as just get together and have a great time running some muskie. We don't even call them tournaments because it's not really a competitive atmosphere. We just call them events. So we usually run 5 or 6 of those per season, as well as really the main goal is research and protecting these fish here. So these days, your average muskie angler in New Brunswick, whether you're on the lower, the upper, or anywhere in between, we've got a trophy fishery on our hands here. We've got fish in the 40 to 50 pound class out there. We've got 50 inchers out here, and we've got a great population. So it's here to stay, and it's our job to conserve it.
Wow, that was such an interesting history of how muskies got here. I guess what I want to get into and understand is, obviously you were saying, Marlon, that these fish came down from Quebec, so they're a Quebec strain, right? Okay, and when they got into the St. John River system, I have to imagine that they thrive because the environment was so suited for them. What do you think it is about the St. John River that suited the muskies' survival and for them to thrive so well?
You're absolutely correct. It's the St. Lawrence strain of fish, and if you actually look up the St. Lawrence River and muskies, you'll see there's some of the biggest muskies in the world. Most experts feel that the St. Lawrence or Georgian Bay is the place the next world record's coming from. You can ask Angelo Viola, who is up here, and he'll tell you the St. John River is the next place the world record's coming from, which is pretty cool. So the reason they've done so well here is whether it's in the upper or the lower, there's room for these fish. I think the demise of the St. John River striped bass population might have played a role with it into this, as well as just the fact that you had this giant head pond with really no really no top of the food chain. A smallmouth bass can only eat a perch so big, or an alewife that's so big. So those, in my opinion, those populations boomed when they built Mactaquac Dam back in the 60s. The timing was perfect. As the muskies were showing up, these perch populations, bullhead populations, Gaspereau populations, the list goes on. It's a super healthy system. There's tons of room for these muskies to grow. Despite what some people might think, St. John River is probably healthier than it's been in 100 years. So these muskies are able to spawn successfully year after year. And that really just holds true through the whole system, right into the lower, even though it is a bit different water. You've got those weed beds, you've got those flats, and of course, like the most important thing to have a trophy muskie fishery is the forage base. And with suckers, bullhead, and alewife being our Gaspereau and our herring. They've got tons of opportunity and no shortage of food out there.
Okay, excellent. Well, this I think segues really great into what I want to bring up next. And during your introduction, Marlon, I mentioned Muskies Canada, which you alluded to, but we do have a chapter right here on the St. John River in New Brunswick, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm the acting chairman at the moment. The chapter's been great. I'll be dead honest. When I was first, I was living in Nova Scotia coming up, and I was maybe a little hard-headed. Didn't consider myself someone who wanted to be a part of a club. I wanted to figure these fish out on my own, and that was kind of fishing for me. Was to, the solitude was a big part of it. So I kind of shied away. But as I got to know people in the muskie community here, which are nearly all a part of Muskies Canada, I realized that everyone's out there to help each other. It's not a competitive atmosphere. We really all just want the best for these fish. And really in New Brunswick, these fish need our help. They need recognition because it is something special that we have here. And not everybody understands muskies. People might jump to conclusions. You hear all kinds of stuff being thrown around out there about them that simply isn't true. When I realized that, and really, again, just how awesome the community is, how friendly people are and willing to help, I jumped aboard. I basically dove in after a year or two of being a member. I joined the BOD, and here I am now as the chairman.
Well, here you have also, I believe, two other members here with Ryan and Ben who are part
Absolutely.
of that same thing.
Yeah.
Now, where can people go to get more information about the Muskies Canada chapter?
You can hop on to muskiescanada.ca. There's a ton of info there. You can see information from all over Ontario and Quebec, as well as New Brunswick Muskies. If you want to know about New Brunswick Muskies specifically, you can go to muskiesnb.ca. There's a chat forum there for the public, as well as a chat forum that's closed to members only. If you do want to join up, just shoot Ryan Wickholm a message. He's our membership director, and he'll hook you up. And you can come out to an event, join the chat forum, and see what it's all about.
Well, I'll just put up here right quick a screenshot from the website. You mentioned Ryan could help with the membership. Ryan, I'm going to ask the question to you. What does somebody need to know about being a member if they're interested, or how does that work?
So you can go on either the muskiescanada.ca website and just click on become a member, and you can do it all there and pay with your PayPal, or you can message me directly with all your information, and then we can go from there, and I'll take the membership fee and I'll forward that, and then I can set you up myself and create your profile.
Is it how much is the membership fee?
It's $60 yearly membership.
All right, so there you have it, folks. muskiesnb.ca. Get involved, man. I'll tell you what, I signed up this week. I'm a new member, and I definitely want to be a part of making sure that the Muskies have a group of people that care about them and have their best interests. On that note, I was talking to Ben Thornton the other day, and Ben had mentioned that there's been some discussions with regards to the University of New Brunswick. Is that something that we could share a little bit of more detail on, either Ben or Marlon?
Actually, Marlon and I and Mark have been kind of in contact with UNB, and we're trying to get the ball rolling on a new study, I guess, for Muskie. And I don't know how much we can share right now, or what, I guess, where the ball's going from here. I know we're going to have some UNB students attend, hopefully, our outing on Saturday, and I guess go from there and see what we can do with it.
Well, I think the key here is that there's dialogue. Dialogue is the first step to getting anything done. And so I'm for one super excited to hear that you guys are dialoguing with the folks at UNB. Is there any? I'm going to ask a hard question here because I've had this written down in my notebook for some time. So, what is the status of muskies right now as a sports fish? Marlon.
Sure. I'll be transparent here. I've spoken with members of DNR. I think timing is everything, and I think this is great timing that Muskies Canada are having these conversations with DNR, and we're pushing to try and just protect these muskies. Honestly, sport fish status is not something huge that we're really concerned about here. Our main goal right now is to get bag limits and retention size in line with trophy muskie fisheries from across Canada. Originally, when I first started fishing muskies here, the bag limit was 10 of basically any size you could possibly imagine. You could keep 10 muskies a day. Now, there's not many people that could catch 10 muskies a day, to be honest. And luckily, we've gotten that down to 5 fish per day, but that's still outlandish when you look at places like the St. Lawrence River, places like Lake of the Woods, trophy muskie fisheries, which we have here. Typically, it's a 55-inch or above limit, or a 50-inch fish or above limit. Even some places in Wisconsin or Ontario are 1 fish per year or 1 fish per month if you have a specific license. So we're way out of whack here. Basically, they're still viewed as an invasive species where, realistically at this point, they're naturalized. So we're just basically trying to get that recognized, get these fish some protection, which is well deserved. Something I just want to touch on how special this fishery is and why it needs to be protected. When you look at some of these giant muskies you're seeing on Facebook coming out of the States, places like Green Bay or Vermilion in Minnesota, a lot of those fisheries are maybe 1 or 2% natural reproduction. So that means that the state DNR in these states are yearly putting in up to millions in stocking programs to keep these fish going. If they stop stocking, they don't have muskies. That just speaks volumes to how lucky we are here in New Brunswick. The fact that these fish, with literally no help from anybody, are thriving. It needs to be recognized. It needs to be protected. And I understand there's groups out there that feel like that might be at the risk of other species. But at this point, we've had non-biased research done. We're taking research from reports from biologists at UNB, Canadian River Institutes. Any of these people who think that muskies could be detrimental to other species here, it's literally all just potential. There's not one speck of evidence that shows they've been eating the salmon, the trout, or a lot of these native species that people are concerned about. So I just don't see the downside to promoting this fishery.
Well, I certainly see a lot of upside to it myself personally. And from a Fish East perspective, we're here to promote multi-species. We're not biologists. We're here to enjoy the resources that are provided to us. And our job is to promote it and to get people into it by providing the information that might not have been out there before, but will be out there moving forward, like this podcast, for example. Guys, yep.
Just a second.
Sure.
Marlon talked about the 5 fish limit here in New Brunswick, which to me is, as you said, Marlon, outlandish. But you talked about a lot of trophy fisheries have a 50, 55-inch and above slot. Just so people realize how behind the curve we are right now, what's the slot or the size limit here in New Brunswick right now?
It's literally like I think it's like 10 inches to 55 or 60 or something like that. It's basically anything you catch, you're allowed to keep.
It's almost
basically anything other than this year's young of year would be the only thing under that slot.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's definitely something that we as a province need to look at, and we as anglers need to get behind Muskies Canada and the St. John River chapter to get this brought in line with other trophy fisheries.
I think, I do understand they were an invasive species. Things like this take time. The research has to be done. And I think Muskies Canada has done a great job about being very humble about this, about these fish, and taking the proper steps to do tagging studies, to get this research done, to really understand what's going on out there. Like Ben said, we're not biologists, we're fishermen. We're going to keep enjoying the resource, but we do need to keep this stuff in mind. And I think it's time we make that push. And I think we're on the right track. I think we will get there.
Yeah, awesome. I see Mark Curry just commented with the metric measurements for those of you who would rather use the metric system, and it's 10 centimeters to 170 centimeters.
There you go.
That's a pretty.
Donnie, that's already
huge
comical.
slot.
That's comical, to be honest with you. I mean, why even put a rule at that point?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But anyhow, well, my checklist is done, guys. So now we can get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
Because what I wanted to talk about, unless you know what? Before we, go ahead, Donnie. You must have something.
I got one more thing. I got to bring this up because I mentioned Mark Curry here a second ago. Marlon talked about how, friendly and sharing the Muskie community has been. So Mark Curry wants to know where Ryan Wickholm's spot is in downtown Fredericton because apparently Mark's having problems finding fish.
Ryan, you're on the spot, buds.
Well, Mark, I guess I'll give you a couple pointers if I can. Obviously, I think a community spot that most people know about is right in the heart of downtown Fredericton, around the train bridge, Westmoreland Street Bridge.
Don't tell them
Those
that.
fish seem to love bridge piers.
You're supposed
Cat's out of the bag. Okay.
Oh no!
You're supposed to tell them in between the boats in the marina.
I would have gone with the Gord
So that's,
Pizer
I mean, you're going to
answer.
see videos on YouTube and pictures. It's popular. Everybody knows about that. Other than that, I'm looking for shallow weed beds. For those that don't know, we don't have any deep weed in the river system. Or is really the deepest defined weed. Close to deep water is one of my favorite spots to fish, and there's lots of that all around downtown.
All right, very good. Well, sorry,
Hope
Jason.
you, Mark.
I see Jason Wilcox's comments.
I was gonna give him the Gord Pizer answer that muskies are usually where you find them.
Yeah, that's great.
That's a good one too.
All right. What say you, gentlemen, that we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's discussion? I've got another page here prepared because I've got a lot of questions I want to ask. Here's the facts. You guys are in a bubble. When I say you're in a bubble, it's because you guys wake up in the morning and all you want to do is go hunt down some muskies, right? Because you've developed, patterns. You've developed, basically a plan of attack. You're looking at weather. You're looking at all kinds of stuff. I want to just take two steps back a little bit for the average angler who's interested in multi-species, maybe looking at muskies as something they'd love to get into, but wasn't sure how. What does somebody need to know before going to target muskies? Two-part question. Part one, what do they need to know as far as knowledge? Part two, what do they need as far as basic equipment to get started? I'm going to start with Ryan on this one.
So the first thing you need to do is have lots of patience. That's the first key, because they can be extremely difficult to find. Other than that, there's lots that you can. Oh, you're out.
I'm out.
But other than that, you need to know that they are ambush predators. So they love to sit in spots they can ambush. They don't like to travel fast and far to get it, although they will if they're really hungry, they will. But they like to sit in a spot and wait for something to come in its face and shoot out and grab it. They love sitting in weed pockets or behind structure, hiding around behind. What else is there I can say? But yeah, pretty much just fish. Go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
No, I was just saying. I don't know a lot, but from what I've seen so far, and you guys can correct me. You mentioned the key word, ambush predator. Well, one species that I feel behaves like a muskie, but maybe on a smaller scale. But if you can kind of understand the way it acts and the way it behaves, is a chain pickerel. Now, a chain pickerel obviously is part of the Esox family, right? So it is a cousin to the muskie. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, where you find chain pickerels, not by accident. They are there for very specific reasons, and that is 99% of the time because of an ambush situation, whether it be weeds or a structure, like you said, sometimes current. I think if you can understand that the muskie is an apex predator and he's there to hunt, and he wants to spend as little energy as possible to get fed, then he's going to position himself in a way to do so. So if you've ever fished, chain pickerel, I think that's extrapolated in a much, bigger sense, obviously. But that's kind of my observation, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head there.
Okay.
That was...
what about as far as gear, Ben? What does somebody start with? I want to get one kit. I want to try, see if I like it. What do I do?
Well, I guess it depends on where you're located. But if you were to get one setup, I would probably find a rod and reel that will benefit you in a trolling scenario and a casting scenario. So a pretty economical, friendly setup would be like a Okuma Citrix, which has a clicker. It's a bait cast reel, but also has your clicker, which is not necessary, but very good to have for trolling. And then as far as a rod goes, you want like I'm going to say for an all-around rod, like an 8-foot to 8.6 heavy, medium heavy, extra heavy, in that range where it's easy to cast a inline spinner, let's say, or you can chuck rubber blades, but you can also put that down in the rod holder and go for a troll if you want to or need to.
Okay. Marlon, directed to you. And I'm trying to break down and the fact that you shouldn't be so intimidated. You should try. So what is your recommendation for somebody who comes to the St. John River and wants to give a day and say, today I want to try and see if I can at least see a muskie?
I mean, as far as gear go, I think Ben hit it on the head there. An 8.6 is a great rod. I like when I started. If you're going to do a bit of both casting and trolling, it's good to have a reel that has a clicker on it. Abu Ambassador is a great example. The barrel style, like the round bait caster style. If you're just dipping your toes in the water, honestly, you can get away with your striper gear if you've got some heavier striper gear. That stuff will catch muskies fine. I would probably recommend maybe putting some heavier line on it, maybe some 80-pound test. 60 you can get by, but certainly have either a steel leader or a fluorocarbon leader no less than 130 pounds. Believe me, it's heartbreaking if you ever get bit off. It's happened to me, and not only does it suck that you lost that fish, which could have been the fish of a lifetime, it just sucks to know that you left a lure in a muskie's face. So I guess that also brings me to release tools. I know muskie guys kind of get this rep of being preachy out there, that we're all we preach at people about the proper holds and catch and release. Not only is this important though for the fish, it's important for your own hands. If anyone's ever got a glimpse of a muskie's mouth, Ben, I think you've got a great clip there. Yeah, you don't want your fingers going in there. You're not lipping these things. And when you get one of those, when you got a 30, 40 pound fish pissed off in the net with teeth like that, you do not want a hook caught on that fish and caught in your and caught on your hand. It's happened to me, and it is horrible. So long nose pliers, hook cutters, a big net that we use like a live well on the side of the net, on the side of the boat rather. These things are paramount for your safety and the fish's safety. One of the most important things I'm also going to say is a hook sharpener. Sharp hooks are like so important in muskie fishing. I've kind of got a funny story about that. I had a client come out, book a day of muskie fishing, and he said, yeah, I've been trying, and I just can't get one, and I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. I think I'm using the right lures. And the first thing I do at the beginning of the day is I sharpen every hook. If it's not razor sharp and I'm not concerned that hook's going to draw blood on my own hand, like I've got the file to it. I've got chainsaw files taped together I use. That's a cool little trick. But anyhow, we're trolling along, and the clicker goes off real quick. And he goes, "What's that, weeds?" And I said, "No." I said, we're out in pretty deep water right now, and that bait's only 10 feet down. And he goes, "Oh, well, that happens to me all the time." And then he goes, are those hook sharpeners important? And I said, yeah, like really, really important. So it turns out this guy had been contacting muskies constantly. He said this was happening to him once or twice a day, and he just wasn't hooking them because his hooks were so dull. So that's super, super important. Another quick tip for someone that's starting off, like I said, maybe you've got some striper gear out there. you know, a hungry muskie is going to take a 6-inch bait, a 7 or 8-inch bait. You can get into fish on stuff like that. And I know when I started, you know, the frustration was driving me crazy. I couldn't find these fish. I couldn't hook these fish. So I just started working, you know, I started downsizing a lot. Instead of using those crazy 10, 12-inch baits, I started going to 6-inch jakes, you know, maybe even shad wraps, super shad wraps, things like that. And I started catching some pretty huge smallmouth bass doing that, which was fun, right? And it's a confidence booster. My lure looks like a fish to a fish, right? A big fish, and it's fun catching huge bass. And eventually, I started getting follows for muskies on these baits. I eventually started catching muskies on these baits, and then I had the confidence to go back to those spots with my huge 12-inch lures, big medusas, things of that nature. Really work them and really learn how to use musky baits. So that's some tips for someone that's just, like I say, wants to dip their toes in the water.
Just to circle back real quick, we're talking about the release. I heard when I went out with Ryan recently, one of the first things he asked me is, or Nate, our cameraman, do I have wire cutters? Yeah. Wire cutters. Is that a critical tool to have?
Absolutely. If for one, I mean, accidents do happen. You could get a hook right through the palm. Like I said, I've been attached to a 40-inch fish, and he's thrashing. It's not fun when you got a 7-knot hook and you're buried in your palm. You know, without a quick set of hook cutters, just cut those out. You know, that could have ended really horribly. I don't know what I would have done. I guess I might have been walking into the hospital with a muskie in my arms. But also just when I mean, sometimes these fish just hammer these baits. You know, and there's just no way you're getting them out of the net. There's no way you're getting that fish back in the water really quickly without cutting those hooks. So it's super important. Just makes life way easier. You know, a new hook for your bait cost, you know, it's probably 75 cents to $1.25, something like that. To me, a muskie's worth that much. You know, just get those hook cutters out, cut the hooks, let the fish breathe, get him back in the water so that you know, the water's over his gills and he's breathing again.
So I got a picture here of Ben releasing the fish, and I just want to finish off that topic. You know, there's nothing wrong with taking a quick picture, right? But we want to get these fish back in. What is the proper method to releasing these fish? Maybe Ben, you want to talk about what you're doing here?
Well, proper release is, like Marlon and Ryan both said, like, get the fish back into the water as quick as possible. If you're going to measure it, do the girthing in the net, have a bump board or a cradle or some sort of measuring device ready on the deck of the boat. Make sure if you're like the deck of the boat is wet, so you don't take the slime off the fish, and then get your picture, lay it down, measure it, and get it back in the water as soon as possible. Now, the one thing I learned this year, and I think we all kind of learned about, is as soon as you put a muskie back in the water, it's going to have a burst of energy that it wants to go right then and there. And most of the time, or what I used to do especially, is, well, you don't know if that fish is ready to go or not. You hold on to it, and that fish is getting stressed out more and more with you holding on to it and not letting go of it. And sometimes that could be fatal for that muskie or take really long to revive. I know, Marlon, we've all sat with a muskie and let it revive for over an hour out of the fishing and wondering what there could be more muskies biting. But you got to sit with that fish. And one thing I learned this year is, instead, on that initial burst of energy, give the fish a push off. If it's sitting upright, give it a little push and let him go. Like, let him get that original burst of energy out, and enough for that fish to get back down to the colder water, especially in warmer water. That fish needs to get back down to colder water ASAP and get the oxygen back in his system. So if you let that fish go on the initial burst, that gives it that much more of a chance to get down quicker and revive and safely.
All right. Perfect. Excellent. Thank you for that.
I just want to speak up for a sec too and just talk about why this is so important. A lot of people may not realize a fish on our river in that 40 to 50 inch range is likely anywhere from 15 to 30 years old. That's a long time it took to grow that muskie. Those big muskies are almost all females. And there's not a lot of them out there. There's typically more males than there are females. So when you're dealing with a 45 plus inch fish, That really is the future of our muskie fishery here. And you know, we got to treat them right. Like Ben mentioned, I aim for 20 to 30 seconds out of the water. I have my measuring device ready. I make sure a cameraman's ready. We pick that fish up out of the net, support the belly, get those pictures, put it on the measuring device, and then it's back in the water. As Ben mentioned, let go of the fish and let it tell you. If it goes belly up and it needs some time to be held, then hold it. If not, just let it be. You know, and it's so cool to watch these things swim away. It's almost like they're a little ticked off that you got the best of them, that they know they're muskies, and they're kind of like, well, you won this round and you're going to pay for that. But you see them swim away with that attitude, and there's just nothing like it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it's time, because we've got some great people on watching us right now. I just think it's time to show some muskie. So let's start with, oh man, I got so many to choose from. I don't even know where to start. Why don't we start with this guy right here? Oh my geez.
That is a story.
And the fish is not bad either.
We're not going to get deep into that one.
We have to get deep into that one. Ben, when else are we going to get deep into this one?
Well, that's my first muskie ever.
That's why I put it up. Yes, sir.
Say that again.
That is my first muskie ever. And the day before, Marlon and
I almost drove him to shore. That's right.
We were sitting around the campfire the night before and said, like, man, I need to get my first muskie. I put in the year before a bunch of times in the boat with Marlin and Matt and nothing. And I'm like, well, are these things even?
Oh, not nothing. You had follows, you had short strikes, you had hooked fish. They made you work for it, man.
Oh, yeah. And then he said, you're getting one of two things. Your first muskie is either going to be a dink or it's going to be a monster. Well, at about 5:45 the next morning, it all came true. And seeing a fish of that size and coming into the net is, I've held salmon before. I've held big trout. It all started, and it's really cool to see. And after that, it was it's been a total addiction since, for sure.
Yeah. Do we have a measurement on that fish?
That fish was 45 inches, 45 and a half. But the neat thing was, and Marlon was there taking the picture, the fish had half its tail missing.
Oh, wow.
It didn't have much for a tail.
You can see, I mentioned that most of these big muskies are females. The way these fish spawn, they bite each other. They really go at each other hard. They'll smack each other with their tails really violently. So you can see all the marks on this fish. You know, as much as we all want that big, beautiful fish, I love seeing these beat up big girls like this. You know, Ben probably could have got a few more inches out of her.
Marlon, admit it. You like the ghetto girls.
Oh yeah, big time.
Dirty danglers.
No, that shows that a muskie of that size in this river could have up to 800,000 eggs she laid that spring. You know, it's survival of the fittest for these fish. So they spawn and they leave these eggs. They leave them in the wide open. They don't protect them. And when muskies are born, they think that they know they act like the predator that they are from the very beginning. So a lot of them get eaten. A lot of them don't make it. I think out of all those eggs, maybe 1 or 2% actually survive. But that's, you know, just to know that fish spawned just mean that's great news for the fishery, right? So I love seeing fish like that, and I love seeing the little ones as well. Little muskies are cool.
Speaking of the little ones, this picture absolutely, you know, made me warm and fuzzy inside when I saw this.
That is awesome.
So, Ryan, talk to us about this experience here.
Actually, yeah, that was this summer. I don't get to take my son out jack fishing for muskie a lot because, let's face it, sometimes little kids just aren't cut out for something like that. But I like to get him out every once in a while and go chase a muskie. And we went for a little troll, and we got lucky. And that was actually Jack's second muskie. He got one the year before. But it's just great seeing the smile on his face and help him reel it in and then net the fish. It was just something I'll never forget. I love
Oh
it.
man, I wish my dad would bring me for muskie fishing when I was younger. Jeez. Okay, but no, now let's go back to the beasts.
I'm gonna ruin him soon though. He's older and he's gonna come out a lot more.
Oh, betcha. So that's a little bit bigger than the one Jack caught. Ryan, what is the story behind this beast, and where was this?
Well, look at the face. That actually was 2 years ago, I believe. It was October 1st, and that is actually the largest muskie I've caught so far in the St. John River. It was 48.5 inch long with a 22-inch girth.
Yes.
And actually, Don, you might know a little bit about the lure I caught it on. I caught it on Old Faithful, my favorite bulldog.
Rest in peace, Old Faithful.
May Old Faithful
rest in peace. It's retired now. Yeah,
because it has no tail.
But yeah, that exactly. That fish actually came out of nowhere, probably 10 feet from the boat, and just inhaled my bait. I wasn't expecting that at all. I hadn't seen anything for a few hours, and I was starting to fall out of the zone, and then bam, that fish hit and woke me up, and I love it.
That's quite a way to Ben. Before you pull that picture down,
or if you want to throw
it back, the guys were talking about gear and getting people ready. Seeing that picture and looking at a couple of the finer details, there's one thing that the guys didn't mention. Make sure you have a towel or something, because as you can see, there is
slime time,
slime
baby.
dripping off these fish. There's nothing wrong with the slime, but let's face it, if you're new and you've got that big heavy rod in your hand and you're still covered in slime, there's a good chance that rod's going to go in the river on the next cast. So I'm just trying to save these folks some money.
No,
a crying towel.
Don, you're supposed to wipe it in your beard, man.
Oh,
that's okay.
Okay, so you know what? I have to admit, Ben and Ryan's faces during their big fish reminds me of a lot of face and the absolute chaos that happened to me when I caught my big one. But someone who's absolutely mastered the mean mugging face during muskie is Marlin. Like, he always has a straight face, even when he's holding a cow of a fish. Watch, you'll see. We're gonna go through a couple of these, and you're gonna see his face. It's always like
just another day at the office.
Just another day, Marlin.
No.
I've seen a smile.
My knees are shaking in every single one of those pictures, man. Even the small ones, my knees still shake sometimes, man. If they don't do that to you, then you probably shouldn't be out there.
I mean, this one here looks like it's a fall bite, and I mean, just look how fat and rotund.
Yeah, these are the ones I'm looking for right now. These big fall females, they're starting to develop that egg weight. They're on the feed. They've got to get those fat reserves for winter. And this is your best chance at a record or the biggest fish of the year. There's musky guys out there until December in some places. If anyone out here knows the Master Crow videos on YouTube, Matt Myers, he's one of the members in BOD members of the local chapter. He'll be out there. He'll be the only boat out there musky fishing well into December usually down in Fredericton where it's still legal to fish. So, well,
this one is obviously a fat fall cow, but I want to continue on the theme of mean mugging because you have a signature pose, and it's called the Muskie Stash.
There you go. That was
look at that.
That speaks volumes to our fishery, man. That was I believe that was an August fish. Ben and Dom were with me that night. I think we each got one in the boat all within 20 minutes. So that just shows you. Okay, so this is something that I want anyone that is going out musky fishing to realize. If you're new at this and you're getting frustrated, these fish at the peak metabolism in the middle of summer is when they eat the most regularly. They may only eat once every 18 hours. That's the shortest amount of time that goes by between a muskie's meal. So, you hope that not every fish in the river is on that same schedule and you can get a couple in a day. But this is a day that we started at probably, an hour before sunup. It was dark when we started that day, and we didn't even see a fish until the sun just began to set in the evening. And that's a long day in the summer. You're talking 16, 17, 18-hour days. I know not everybody has that kind of time to go on the water, but the point I'm trying to get across is just don't get discouraged because you didn't get that fish that day. Take what you learned that day. If you saw a muskie, that's a huge win, right? If you saw a muskie and you've got to go to work or you've got to go do something with the family, you've now got a spot. Go back and check that spot. You were doing something right. It just wasn't time for that muskie to eat, right? So that's, I see a lot of people get discouraged and they head off the water and they say, well, I've got 30 hours in and I haven't caught one yet. Might have just been the wrong, oh, crap. Might have just been the wrong, talking with my hands there.
No worries. Well,
it might have just been the wrong 30 hours, right?
These are another fall fish. You can see with the colors in the background of this one, Marlin.
Yeah.
Again, you're talking about those big females fattening up in the fall. Look at that. What is there to say? I thought I'd have more to say about it, but I don't really have anything to say.
Nah, there's special fish. There's special fish here on the St. John River, and honestly, these pictures don't do them justice. When you get to see the back and the belly and the girth on these things, it's it's something else, man. We don't get a lot of super long fish. Our fish aren't known for getting into that 50+ inch range. If you get
are there wait, hold on. Are there 50-inch fish?
Absolutely, yes, there are. Yeah, I've
witnessed
last year.
it.
There's been a few in my boat last year. I haven't got my 50 yet this year, but there has been 50 inches caught this year. So they're out there. Again, it's they don't get 50 inches by being dumb either, though, right?
No.
Smart fish.
I want to just one more pick before we get to this next topic here. I mean, Ben, this was really recent. So recent, it was what, this weekend that just passed?
Sunday evening.
Sunday evening, we crossed each other on the water, and there it is for you folks. Hard work. There's Ben. He's I think you were fishing with Ryan and Cassidy that day, right?
Yeah. We
all day,
our
all
annual
weekend.
Thanksgiving trip, and Ryan and I and Cassidy fished all day Saturday. And nothing. Like we didn't get on the water super early, but 9, 10 o'clock all day till dark, nothing. Not a sniff, not a rip, nothing. And this is in the last hour. We're out on Sunday before we all have to go to our Thanksgiving festivities, and I'm getting pretty down on myself. I haven't seen a fish in a while, and you just got to keep grinding. That's all I got to say. You keep grinding, and you will eventually be rewarded by these fish. Don't think you can't catch a fish. You just got to know there's always one out there that's going to bite. And finally one did at about 4:30, and we're getting off the water at 5.
Oh yeah. Now, another thing I want to talk to Ben about real quick is, introducing new people to muskie fishing. Now, is that Cassidy's first muskie?
That one is not.
Okay.
Her first muskie was actually a 43-incher in Fredericton.
What? 43-inch first fish.
She came into it in June and July, and she's been there in the boat just as much as I have and put in the time as much as I have, and she's been rewarded too. She's caught plenty of muskies, and it's great to see the smile after she catches one.
Oh, I've had the pleasure of fishing with you and, of course, with her as well, and she's just a pleasure to be around and to see that smile on her face, holding that big old slime rocket. It's just awesome. Absolutely awesome. All right. Ryan, wanted to take some time to talk about one of the things you've been working on, and that is, for those of you who don't know, Ryan is a craftsman. Ryan makes, correct me if I'm wrong, custom handmade musky trolling baits. Or crankbaits? Did I get that right?
I do. I do. Yes. I'm still a newbie at it though. This is my first full year of doing trials and running my own lures. But yeah, absolutely. I started doing it and I love it.
What are they called? What is the brand name that you're naming them?
I think I'm gonna go with Wiki Baits.
Wiki Baits, awesome. Let me throw one up here so the folks at home know what we're talking about. Look at that bad boy. So talk like what are we looking at here, and how's that made?
So that there is made out of Western red cedar. Those ones in particular are my deep divers. They'll dive to around 20 feet, 8.5 inches long, stainless steel components, a 1/8 Lexan lip, double pinned, so it's not going to come out. My wood is sealed. After I do my painting process, I seal it up with 4 to 5 coats of UV resistant epoxy, and they're good to go.
Now, I mean, I've had the pleasure of trying some of these, and I got to tell you, the amount of vibration that these baits generate is pretty impressive. Now, I'm going to guess that you make deep divers, medium divers, and potentially shallow divers as well.
Yeah, so that one there in particular, that is a mid-depth one. You can get that down to around 15 feet. I do have some shallow ones I'm working on at the moment. I really focused on the deep ones this year. I didn't want to take on too much at once, but it's all about experimenting. So I've got some minnow baits I'm working on, some jointed baits. Like I said, shallow, deep, mid. I'm just going to be playing around with it all winter long, trying to come up with some.
What was the
off that one today?
What was the inspiration behind doing this? Because obviously this takes, I mean, first of all, it takes some time to develop, but also just making them takes a lot of time. I see you have a little bit of a workshop behind you there. Is this where everything's done?
This is kind of the room where I like to do a little bit of airbrushing and some epoxy work. I grew up with a little bit of an artistic background. I used to love art, drawing, and now I absolutely love musky fishing. So I figured, why not put the two together? And I absolutely had so much fun.
I mean, look at some of the color combinations here, guys. If you guys are interested, hit Ryan up, message him. You do custom orders as well, custom colors?
Yeah, I'm going to start doing custom colors. If people ever want anything, they can feel free to hit me up.
And where are your baits available anywhere right now for purchase?
Yes, actually, now did make a couple. They went to a minnow tackle shop downtown Fredericton. It's a great little tackle shop. It's fairly new, but it's awesome. So I encourage you guys to go check that out when you get a chance. And I think some of my lures have already sold there, which is awesome.
And how much are your lures? How much do they sell for?
I will sell them and make them custom for people for $75.
I'll tell you what, $75 for a custom bait of that size. What's your thoughts on that, Marlin? Marlin, I want to hear. Have you had a chance to try some of these?
Oh man, the baits I've been having Ryan before he started making his own wood baits. I've been having Ryan make custom colors for me, giving him baits that I like, but I wanted to try a different color. He's been painting baits for me for the past 3-4 years, and his paint jobs are second to none. His epoxy, second to none. His paint jobs last. They're beautiful. And I've had a chance to run some Ryan baits. I've seen them in action. I've seen them put fish in the boat. That's what else do you want? I mean, they flat out produce muskies. A couple muskies to me is worth $75. And that might sound like a shock to some people out there that aren't used to musky fishing and aren't used to buying musky baits. When you look at a production lure, a plastic lure coming off the shelf these days, your Jake's, grandma's, things like that, going for $30, $35 Canadian. It's not a bad deal to have something custom made that's going to last and do something that those baits don't do. As well. You guys might think this sounds absolutely crazy, but some of these basement baits these days are going, for $250, $300 US. I've seen one-offs go for up to a couple $1,000 American, and that's no joke. People pay that much for baits regularly. There's something wrong with musky fishermen, probably.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, no,
You said that. We did.
Yeah, we did. You did.
In their defense, this is art, right? That's what it is. It's functional art. To me, why would someone pay that much or more, $20,000, $100,000 for a painting that doesn't do anything, right? These baits actually work, and you can put them in the water. You can catch fish with them and then hang them back up in your collection if you want. Personally, you don't need that stuff to catch a muskie, right? Here's my favorite saying: "There's no magic lure, but that's not going to stop me from trying to find it."
There you go. Very cool. Donnie, you had something to say?
Yeah, I mean, Marlon was saying about people spending $100,000 on a painting versus $2,000 on a custom lure. Yeah, that painting's not going to get bit off and swim away, never to be seen again. So.
Snag on that big rockfish down there.
Oh yeah, and
so
literally
teeth
marks all over it, right? I mean, that's what it's about. I was
teeth
Ryan
marks,
had mentioned
we like the teeth marks.
You do like the teeth marks.
Teeth marks are cool.
Ryan, you mentioned that your baits are available at Minnow Tackle Shop. We've got Amanda actually online with us right now, and on the topic of Amanda and her new shop, I noticed that she put a post up about getting some new musky baits. I saw some Jakes in there. I saw some Believers in there. For those of you who are joining us and have never heard these names, trust me, they're new to me too. But once you get into this musky world, there are just a couple of go-to baits. We're going to talk about that right after what I'm about to say here. I wanted to, while we're on the topic of showcasing some local product, we've got a local musky angler. I believe Jason was on with us as well, Jason Wilcox. If you head over to Minnow Tackle, he does some pretty solid spinner baits as well, and I've seen them in action. They're single thumb. I'm sure you can custom them as well. And Amanda, you're there. You can comment if I'm not mistaken. You have them in stock as well. Does anybody know how much these retail for? How much he sells these for?
I believe $25.
I was going to say 25 myself, but another awesome product, locally made. Locally made. Here's an example of different color combinations and different variations of patterns that Jason has going on. He does the tandems as well, right? So just a quick shout out if you want to check out, go to Minnow Tackle Shop. Check out Jason Wilcox's handmade spinner baits. Definitely worth a throw or two.
Jay's flies are at Minnow as well, and I'll say one thing: there's I prefer to throw my own flies. There's very few other fly tires that I'll use their flies, whether it's musky, trout, salmon, anything. Jay ties a top-notch fly. He took what he's learned from fly tying, applied it to those spinner baits. And I'm kind of jealous because I keep hearing about all the fish coming on those spinner baits lately.
Yes,
I'm still waiting for mine. So I think Jay's gonna hook me up. I think I got one on the way. So
there we go.
I'm looking forward to that.
Donald, you said something to say?
I did. Amanda commented back, said she definitely has them in stock, $24.99. So you're right on the money, $25. And on top of that, Jeff Rathburn has made a statement, and since we were talking about Ryan and we talked about the friendliness, the camaraderie amongst the muskie community, Mr. Rathburn comments saying, "I've been around bass guys my entire career, and I have to say muskie guys are more than willing to take the time out of their day and help a newbie out. I have to recognize Ryan Wickholm, who took the time to set Dean and I up with the proper leaders and a little bit of helpful knowledge. Thanks again." Ryan, we used your leaders when we were out not too long ago. Is that something else that you provide for sale? Because let's face it, as Marlon mentioned, the right leader can be the difference between losing the fish of a lifetime or, boating the fish of a lifetime. And your leaders were pretty solid. So it's probably something that a newbie in particular might be interested in getting their hands on.
One thing I found about in the East Coast, since muskie fishing is so new here, it's really hard to get good quality terminal tackle. So after having a hard time finding what I wanted, I decided I wanted to start so I make them out of 150-pound fluorocarbon. Absolutely, Don. I will sell them or make them for whoever wants. And I believe Minnow Tackle Shop actually still has some in stock at her shop as well. It's, I believe, $15 for a pack of 2 casting leaders and $20 for a pack of 2 30-inch trolling leaders.
Amanda just commented and says she does still have some in stock. So thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Amanda.
Awesome stuff. All right, so again, Minnow Tackle Shop. Check out Ryan's Wiki Baits. Check out Jason's custom spinner baits, and he does do flies as well. We were talking earlier, guys, about trolling versus casting. How do I start with this? I guess the first question is how much, and my question is going to be for Marlon. I mean, how much of your fish on average is caught trolling versus casting?
So it really depends on the year. As I've been getting busier guiding, it really all depends on on the clients I get that particular year. Personally, I love fly fishing for muskie. I wish I got to do more of it. So really to break that down, how it works is if I get someone contact me and they want to go muskie fishing, right? They see these pictures of these huge fish. I just ask them what their goals are. Is your goal to learn about muskie fishing, develop some skills? Is it something you're going to pursue regularly? Or is your goal just to get that fish in the boat? If you've never used 10, 12 ounce baits and you've never casted a bait caster, if that bite, as I mentioned, these fish, it's all about feeding windows. If that bite is first thing in the morning and we're kind of still at that beginning stage where I'm trying to teach you how to use this gear, our chances are going to go way down. So I end up doing quite a bit of trolling in the course of a season. And that's just because I want to get someone on that fish. I want to introduce them to the sport. We can break up the day. We can do a bit of casting and a bit of trolling, but that skill set is really needs to be developed. So an experienced angler that comes out that's used all that stuff before, no problem. We can cast all day, and we've got a better chance at that fish. In terms of my personal fishing, if my goal is just to get a fish in the boat that day, then I am always open to everything. There's no way I'm going to hit the water and say, I just want to catch a fish. I'm going to catch a fish this way. You're never going to tell a muskie how to eat, right? I could, the bite may have been a trolling bite, and I could go out and I'm not seeing any marks on my sonar. I'm not seeing the fish where they were. I'm going to move shallow and cast. So it really all depends on the year. It's kind of a loaded question.
All right, well, let's break that down a little further. Ben, I'm going to ask you, if I want to get on trolling for muskie, what are the 3 presentations I should look at? That's step 1. Step 2, what speed should I be trolling at? And is there a type of pattern to the trolling? Is it stop and go? Is it straight line? Is it S? Let's start with the baits.
3 go-to trolling baits. Or do we want to get in? I definitely a Jake.
A Jake. So
if you're looking for the one lure to
bait,
go out onto the St. John River, a Jake, a wiki bait, and a grandma.
Hashtag wiki bait. Shameless plug wiki bait.
I guess depending where you are, if you're trolling shallower water, you can troll J spinner baits. They will get down in the shallower water and go through the weeds. But I guess if you're trolling deeper water, Believers, and then you can dip into the custom musky bait game, and you can get baits that go down to 25, 30 feet. But I mean, I know Marlon, I, and Ryan, we run custom baits, but do you need them? They catch more fish? Probably, maybe. But also a Jake will put you on fish as well.
And these are baits that are available, right, for purchase over the counter.
Yeah.
I think one thing Ben was trying to say, the way I look at it is musky lures are tools. I don't get attached to a particular lure because it caught fish last week, right? If the fish are shallow, I'm not going to run my deep diver because I love my deep diver. Right. I'm going to go to a shallow bait, right? So always keep an open mind. Man, there's years where the Jake, I've got $200, $300, $400 custom baits in my tackle box that'll get way down deep, but they're up deep, they're up shallow, and the Jake's been getting hit. I'm gonna run the Jake, right? It's that. So that's it. You got to have an open mind. You got to see how the fish are acting. If you get an answer, stay on that bite until you stop getting answers. That's kind of how I look at it. What
kind of speed does someone start with? Just an average speed? Because there's a difference. I mean, every species is different. Being multi-species myself, if I'm trolling for landlocked salmon on a lake, I'm not trolling anything under 4 miles an hour. But if I'm trolling for Lakers, I might be doing only 1.5, right? So I'm just curious, like, what is the range of speed for a muskie?
I like to mix it up. General rule of thumb is when the water is under 70 to start the season, I'm usually under 4 miles an hour. When we get into summer, I might be up to 5.5 even. But even then, I'm a throttle troller. I've learned that from some of the best trollers out there. One of the best quotes I ever heard is I never let a muskie see the same speed for more than 15 seconds, right? And that's why people always, why do you do so well on those really wavy days? It's because if you watch the speed on your GPS, you might 1 second be going 5 miles an hour, next second you're going 3, then you're 4.5. You're all over the map. That keeps the fish guessing. So I kind of like that. Again, general rule of thumb, max speed is probably 5-6 miles an hour in the summer. That's really pushing it. And the slowest when you get into the 40s or almost freezing water, you might even be 2.5, 3 mile an hour.
2.5. Okay, down to 2.5. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And as far as patterns are they more typically on a linear path, zigzag, S's?
But if again, that can change. I like to run zigzag patterns. If I'm covering open water, just because you're painting a bigger swath, I guess, like, you're there's a lot of water out there. You're more likely to call fish into your spread if you're covering a few different depths and running a zigzag or an S pattern. But if you start finding, if you're watching your sonar or you're getting bit right on that contour line, right on a weed edge or right on a drop off, then maybe do your next pass hugging that drop off and contacting all those fish right in a row.
Okay. We'll take any questions if there's any questions. Donnie, anybody, if you have any questions with regards to getting into some trolling or being more specific about the trolling, I mean, I think we got the guys that spend more than enough hours trolling for muskie.
We do have a couple questions. They're not trolling specific, but I think we can still bounce them. First off, Pat Young said Marlin corrupted his son Alex and himself 2 weeks ago with 5 muskies in the 39 to 43 inch range over the October 3rd, 4th weekend. They are now hooked for life. So Marlin, you are now responsible for someone else emptying their bank account on muskie gear.
Awesome. We had a blast. That was a great trip.
Matt Zito, 5 muskie over a couple days. Yeah, I'd say that's a good trip. Mark Curry has kind of answered this question, but I'm going to bounce it off of you guys as well. Have any of you ice fished for muskie? Is there a winter fishery for them?
I've never done it. I haven't heard. I've heard of the odd bycatch, but honestly, the St. John River is it's not too safe to ice fish in the lower section. I personally would not be out anywhere north of Burton. I wouldn't be caught on that ice with the fluctuating water levels from Mactaquac.
Yeah.
And as far as the head pond goes, honestly, I'm not a huge ice fisherman. I spend enough time chasing these fish in the open water. So, there's been talks. We've talked about maybe making a go and going out there, but not that I know of. No, there's not a huge winter fishery here.
Okay, fair enough. Anything else, Donald?
Okay, and then there is one. I don't know whether you'd call this a trolling or just a different technique question in general. Has anyone ever tried drifting live suckers, catching suckers and using them as bait in the same body of water?
I've heard of that technique all over central Canada.
It's on my list.
Is that something that are we allowed to do that here?
You're allowed to do it. You are allowed to do it in the lower St. John, but I believe you have to go target that fish and catch it in that same body of water and drift it as live bait. Whereas in other places like Ontario and some of the places you can just go to the tackle shop and buy a bunch of suckers, rig them up and go. Whereas here we have to go rig up a worm on a hook or whatever and go try to find a sucker first before we can use it. It's definitely been on my radar. I've been wanting to try it for years, but I just haven't got around to doing it yet.
I know a guy
now when it comes to
that loves fishing.
When it comes to using live, when it comes to using live bait in our waters, like you talk about using suckers, there is a stipulation, and I'd actually have to look up the regulations to get the exact wording of it. but you are not allowed to use spiny fish. So your perch, your bass,
No spiny fin fish or
nature.
sport fish.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So,
I think sucker would be considered a rough fish, right?
Oh, yes.
I believe you're right.
So just be careful if you're going to try something like that. There are acceptable techniques, but just make sure you know what you're doing and that you're putting, the right thing on a hook after you already took it off a hook. One more question to bounce out there. As far as deep water, how deep is deep? When I am looking for deeper muskie, what structure am I looking for?
I'll take that one. I do a ton of deep water trolling, or open water trolling, as they might call it. Honestly, I got the Panoptics this summer, and it really opened my eyes to how deep some of these fish will hang out. I personally don't think you're going to convert fish and make them eat when they're sitting 40, 50, 60 feet even down on the head pond. So, honestly, you want to focus on that top of the water column. Most years, one of my most productive lures is my prop wash bait, which might only be 8-10 feet behind my boat, right in the bubbles. If I'm out there alone and I'm running one rod, I've got no qualms with that being my only rod, trolling 5-6 mile an hour across open water. And I'm confident that bait's going to get hit. They're a very curious fish. They might come up just to check out the motor, the turbulence from the prop wash, and they're going to see that bait, and you're going to get hit. So when it comes to structure, we don't have structure in the traditional sense on the St. John River. When you read about muskies on the Canadian Shield, or say Wisconsin with their big weed beds and whatnot, my best advice for someone starting out on this river is don't get wrapped up in those depths. If you've got a bait down 15, 20 feet, that's probably enough. Picture our river like a trout river and think, where would a trout be? That is my best advice to anybody going out onto the Mactaquac head pond. Take that bird's eye view of the system, look down and think of it like, where would a big brown trout be laying right now? And you're going to start to find more muskies that way.
Yeah.
Okay, we had another question pop up, and it was kind of fitting, Marlon, that you mentioned that your most productive rod is your prop wash rod. Robert McHatton, my young fella Ethan, usually has his rod in the prop wash. Ethan would like to know, how much line should he be running? So how far out should he be running a line in that prop wash?
That it all depends on your bait, really. I like to get I like a bait that gets down the fastest, closest to the boat. You talk to West Coast salmon fishermen, and they'll tell you the exact same thing. They use a downrigger so they can get a line or a spoon or whatever they're using, literally, 5 feet under that propeller, just out of the way of that propeller. Those fish come up to check that out, and they're not shy. We've caught some muskies, or seen some muskies caught, that have pretty clearly been hit by a propeller. That's my only guess of how their faces got so mangled. They just probably got a little bit too close to a moving boat. So it's really hard to gain confidence in for guys who haven't run that wash rod until you start getting hit on it. But let me tell you, I've put some huge fish in the boat doing that.
Very best.
It works.
Well, we're gonna move forward a little bit because time is not on our side, but I want to get into casting for muskie. So for whatever it is, I get it. Trolling is effective. It covers water. But for me, this is just my personal opinion, there seems to be a sense of achievement when you can, hook into a fish casting. I don't know if you guys share that same sentiment, but for me, it's all about the casting. It's always been about the casting, and it doesn't matter what, this is regardless of the species for me. Having said that, what would be I'm going to ask each one of you your favorite presentation if I was going to cast for muskie on the St. John, either the pet pond or the lower. Let's start with Ryan.
So for casting, for myself, my absolute favorite must-have casting bait is a rubber swim bait. Whether it is a Shadzilla, Poseidon, Bulldog, Medusa. There's a bunch of different kinds, but they're all exceptional baits. My favorite thing about them is there are so many different ways that you can fish those baits. You can fish them extremely high in the water column. You can fish them low in the water column. You can fish them steady, straight retrieve. You can fish it erratically. You can pull pause. There's just so many different things you can do. That's what I love about them the most. And muskies just inhale them. I love it.
I mean, I've seen you in action with
and
them,
I prefer
Donnie,
like the 8 to 10 inch range.
Okay, 8 to 10 inch. I mean, Donnie and I've witnessed you working that all day long, so we know that works. And it's, how can I say, it's a workout, isn't it, Donnie? It's a workout throwing those baits.
It is when you're used to throwing. I mean, as someone who spent more time fishing smallmouth than anything, you know, when you're looking at a half ounce, maybe a 3/4 ounce in some situations around here as being a heavy bait, and then all of a sudden you're swinging something that's 5 ounces or heavier. Yeah, you realized you picked up a different rod that morning.
Absolutely. Ben Thornton, what is your favorite go-to casting lure?
Favorite go-to casting lure besides the fly?
No, we're not there yet. That's the next part. We're not on flies yet.
Okay.
Simmer down.
Favorite casting lure for my water up here would have to be a glide bait.
Oh, okay.
And working a glide bait all day, it does take technique, but feeling a fish hit a glide bait, and I know Marlon can attest to this too. And Ryan too. We've all caught fish on glide bait, and just the way you're on that pause, feel a musky take, and sometimes you don't feel it. I love working a glide bait and my blades.
Okay, what would be your favorite one or two glide baits as far as brands of these?
A hellhound would be top.
Okay,
for sure.
What size?
6 to 8 inch range, like Ryan said with his casting baits. I like a smaller hellhound actually.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I like running this mini hellhound, I guess it's called.
Could it be potentially because the smaller profile gives you a little bit more cadence, when you're working the bait?
Yeah, it is less of a workout. A glide bait does take it out of you by the end of the day. Your casting shoulder is sore, but they're fun to run.
And what is your setup for throwing a glide bait as far as rod, reel, line?
Right now, I run I guess 80 pound braid to a wire leader, a 12-inch wire leader, just so it's a little stiffer. So if you do have a hook set on the pause, there's not as much slack, I guess, and then it goes paired to a right now I'm running a 7 to 7.6. I think it's a heavy rod, and I got a Shimano Corrado on it, 300 series with your twin handles, I guess, not a power handle.
Now, for a glide bait, is it preferable to have a regular ratio retrieve or a higher speed?
I think pretty regular.
Okay, fair. Because sometimes you don't want that high speed. A lot of people say, "Oh, high speed," but sometimes you don't want it. And
no.
I'm just going to go back to Ryan real quick. What was your setup for throwing those, what you call swim baits, like the bulldogs and stuff like that, the Shadzillas?
So if you're gonna throw just a regular size swim bait, 8 to 10 inch, I do recommend at least an 8 foot rod minimum. I use an 8'6", extra heavy. I'm using a Abu Revo Toro S reel. It's got a 5:3:1 gear ratio. I do prefer a little bit faster though, because I like to work mine with a pull pause, and I like to be able to reel in the slack line as quick as I can. So I do have a big power handle on my reels to help pick up that line. But once you start getting into the late fall, I mean, I was telling you, Don, that I have a lure that it's called a pounder for a reason, because it weighs a pound. So that's when you need that's when you need rods. Like I have a 9'3" extra heavy, and you're gonna need something like that, or else you're just gonna your body over the course of a day trying to throw those baits. And the longer the rod, the easier it is for you to actually cast your bait, and you'll get it much further.
Makes sense to me. Now, Marlon, I saved you for the end. If you know, when it comes to casting, you're fun fishing. Forget your guide hat for a second, all right?
Yeah.
Let's say you're out fishing. You're with one of us, and we're just trying to target casting fish. What are you throwing most of the time?
If if I'm alone, I want the biggest fish in the river. I'm not just going for a muskie. I'm going for the muskie and tubes, jigs, targeting that deep water, targeting those lazy fish that don't like to bring their bellies off the bottom. You got to cram it right in front of their face. Like Ryan mentioned, they will move fast, but those big fish, they really don't like to move fast. So, that's one of my favorites there. There's Red October tubes. There's Water Wolf flat shad tubes. There's Bondi baits, which I think everybody knows about. And I know Middle Tackle Shop has some of those. It is probably not the most exciting way to fish. A lot of people, I've had guys come out in the boat, and that's probably not what they pictured when they pictured muskie fishing. They were probably picturing blades, burning stuff in all day, really fast retrieves. But man, there's been some big fish caught on that deep water presentation. Just go on John Bondi's website on the Bondi bait, and you can see the list of tournaments that have been won on a Bondi bait. And our river's no exception. They work everywhere.
Very good. So I love it. You guys each had 3 different kinds of presentations. The one thing that I will say is when I think of muskie fishing, and you nailed it on the head, I'm always thinking, I don't know why, but I'm always thinking about a bucktail. For me, it's always been that big bucktail. But the most important question I have to ask you when it comes to these 3 presentations of casting, how important is the figure 8 at the boat? Wait. I'm going to ask 3 of you. I'm going to ask Ryan first.
It's extremely important. And most people, when they start out, they're very skeptical about it. I was. There's lots of people that are. But these fish have a real strong tendency to follow and stalk your bait. And most of the times you don't even know that they're there. So when you bring your lure in, you want to do a nice big figure 8, which is also why long rods help. You can do a bigger turn on your figure 8. But it's just like giving these fish a second chance to come in and eat that bait. And when you get a fish that comes out of nowhere from under your boat and eats lure at figure 8, I guarantee you'll do a figure 8 after every cast after that, or even probably just seeing one come in at a figure 8.
All right. How about you, Ben? What's your thoughts on the figure 8?
Whether you're bringing up a Bondi bait, bringing in a fly, bringing in a trolling bait in 55 feet of water, and it's the end of the night, you never know when a muskie is following it. I will not cast my line out or bring it in without doing a figure 8 in the end. I've had fish eat on the figure 8, and it's one of those things that you're never going to forget. When you see a muskie's mouth open up a foot from the boat and their mouth's about the size of a basketball and it's inhaling your bait, you're like, whoa. And it will leave you shaking and just lose all train of thought. You're like, Marlon knows.
Oh, yeah.
It'll put you in complete shock.
Oh,
I can guarantee it.
Marlon, I'm going to guess you kind of agree with what these 2 boys are saying.
It's paramount, not only for muskie. Honestly, it just gets you. I'll just start by saying this. Our fish on the St. John River are not known for figure 8 eats. I've caught some of my biggest muskies on the figure 8. As Ben mentioned, I've been wrapping it up for the day. I'm out literally in the abyss over what I thought was absolutely nothing. I'm bringing in my bait from a trolling pass, and I do my figure 8, and I get smoked. It's so important to finish your cast, and I'm sure you guys know this in bass fishing, in perch fishing, in trout fishing. Finish your cast. Even if you don't catch that fish, you might see something that is going to lead you to the biggest fish of your life. You could be having the worst day of muskie fishing ever. You've seen nothing, and you just all of a sudden see that red tail swim by as you did that figure 8 and finished your cast. All of a sudden, your attitude went from, oh my God, I haven't seen anything, to that was a giant tail. You're going to get that confidence, and you may get that fish. He just gave himself up. You just got an address, right? Funny story about other species. A guy named Chris St. Clair Sinclair, sorry. A lot of guys know him. He guides up in Labrador. His biggest brook trout he ever caught, and I mean, this guy catches some massive brook trout, right? Some of the biggest brookies in Canada. He told me his biggest trout actually came on a figure 8 just because he's trained himself through pike fishing to finish every cast with a circle or an L. You never know when that big fish is down there. So that's my take on it.
Wow. Okay. You know what? I'm looking at the time and I still have a list, but we're going to narrow down to 2 more topics. 2 more quick topics I want to jump on before the end. I've been hanging around some musky guys, and they've been throwing around a lot of terminology that I am not familiar with. And these guys talk about these things like it's law. And I'm talking about moon phases, like minors and majors, and talking about weather changes and barometric pressure drop. Okay. Seriously, is this a thing? Is this like something that we need to understand? Because I need to know if I should be taking, these people seriously. Marlon.
100%. Weather trumps all. Barometric pressure, I think. Steady weather. Fish will get into a pattern. A lot of time that pattern will revolve around the moon phases. The moon creates pressure, and fish feel that. You may not notice it as much with other fish because they have the tendency to bite throughout the day. But when you're talking about the top of the food chain, a fish that may only eat, like I say, once per day or once every couple days, those changes are huge. You need to be on your game, and you need to go back. Like I talk about getting addresses, having that follow that didn't bite, or having a day on the water where all you did was see one fish. If you're back there the next day and you're on a moon phase, get back to that big fish, right? Get back to that spot. Stop exploring. Don't go trying a new place at that point in time. Get back to where there's the fish. It doesn't always work. Muskies can be random. There's days when they bite in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of hot weather when they're not supposed to, off a major or a minor. But generally speaking, I've had a lot of success doing that. And you can almost see it. It's nature. These fish are so in tune with the rest of nature. I mean, those hot summer days where you hear the cicadas going, and the birds are sitting down on the side, the eagles are resting, nothing's going on. Typically, you'll actually notice on a full moon, you're driving to the river. Wow, I just saw a couple deer running. I just noticed the moose. Nature's alive. I feel like that has a lot to do with the moon phase or barometric pressure.
Where do you guys check for these moon phases and stuff like this? Is there an app or a tool or something that I should have on my phone? There's
multiple apps. I mean, you can just there's I think there's a website called Best Fishing Times. I believe it's in the Farmer's Almanac. This is really nothing new, right? There's best fishing days. Hey, the best time to be fishing is when you can get out there, just try and learn and put your baits in front of fish. But there's little things you can do with these moon phases and pressure changes. Like I said, don't be exploring at that time. That's my best advice is get back to where you saw those fish.
I was just gonna say, I know when there's a thunderstorm coming in or there's a big change and shift in weather, I can almost put money that Ben and Ryan are headed to the river, almost like clockwork. So let me ask you this, Ryan. How often, when you see that weather change come up, does it prove fruitful? No, I can't hear Ryan. Hold on a second. Let's see. Ryan, we lost your audio, buddy. All right, I'm gonna unfortunately go to Ben with that question. Ben?
Can you hear now?
Oh, wait, Ryan's back. Hello?
Hello?
Are you with us? Yeah, there you are. Okay, you heard the question? How often? Yep, go ahead.
So nothing is guaranteed, but I'd say when you have weather coming in, I'd say you have at least a 75% chance of at least seeing a fish. I can't tell you how many times that an uneventful day when you don't see anything, you get some dark clouds rolling in, a thunderstorm, some rain. It just gets those fish going, and it just greatly increases your chances. I mean, if you're fishing in a spot where there's no muskies, you're not going to see one. So as Marlon said, if you have an address and you know where there's a fish, get on that spot as soon as that bad weather's in, because she might be ready to go.
Very, very good. All right, guys. Last but not least, I kind of saved this for the very end, and I'm just going to put up a picture.
Ben?
Yep. Sorry, go ahead, Donnie.
Before we go on to this, because I know where you're headed, there was one other comment made when the guys all talked about their casting setups, and I know when we were out with Ryan not too long ago, we talked about this. Mr. Rathburn seems quite surprised that nobody has a topwater in their casting setups. So yeah, an aggressive apex predator, topwater would pop into my head. Is there a reason why none of you are leaning towards a topwater?
I just don't have the confidence for it yet.
Yeah.
Honestly, our river
for me.
Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
Ryan, go for it, man. Handle it.
Oh, for me, it's all about confidence. And when I first started muskie fishing, it kind of hurt my heart when all the guys were telling me that topwater doesn't work. Don't bother, this and that. But I think now, as the population's increasing, we're learning more about muskies. You're going to get them on topwater. I don't doubt that. But like I said, for me, it's just a confidence thing. I've only thrown them a few times. No luck yet. So I haven't really put a lot of time into it, but I might sometime. I know some people who have been throwing topwaters once in a while, and they have had fish blow up on it or follow it in, just eat it yet. So there's hope.
Did you have anything to add to that, Marlon?
Yeah, I wouldn't say. I would say on our river, the fish have so much forage under the water that why do they need to come up top to eat? I don't think it's something they do regularly. I don't think it's something they do very often naturally. Maybe they'll hit a struggling bait fish on the surface or just under the surface. We know they like glide baits here, which run literally 4-5 inches under the surface. So yeah, they will make that move to come up on the top, but not as regularly as, say, a fish on the Chippewa flowage in Wisconsin, where you're talking a skinnier, shallower river system where they're more used to taking advantage of a frog that's going across the river, or something of that nature, right? A rat, a squirrel, whatever. Look at the water here. You just don't see that a lot. You do see thousands of Gaspareaux under the water. So that's how they make their living here. And I've heard the same thing about other fisheries, places like Lake St. Clair, even, where there's a ton of muskies. Yeah, you can go out and get one on topwater if you really grind, but why do that when that's not what they eat on that particular system, right? That's my take on things here. The second factor there is the hookup ratio. I've gone up to some of the tributaries in Maine where they do eat topwater, where they are keying in on frogs, mammals, anything that makes its way across the surface of the water. I went I made it even harder. Of course, I was throwing a fly, but I think I went 2 for 15. So I had 15 fish attempt to eat my fly, and I caught 2. So if your goal is to get a muskie in the boat, maybe not the best idea. Certainly exciting when it does happen, though.
My best luck, I've caught quite a few and landed quite a few muskie topwater, was actually in the Ottawa River system, throwing a buzz bait. Yeah. I mean that water system is polluted with muskies. A lot of mid-sized muskies, right? Like we're talking like 32 to 38 inch size muskies, and they are very aggressive on top. And that's one of the areas that, like you said, I don't feel a big one necessarily will exert the energy, to for a topwater attack. That's my opinion, and I think you guys kind of alluded to that as well. Is there any other questions, Donnie?
That's it. Amanda sending a shout out to the Muskie guys. Amanda from Minnow Tackle. But for questions, we're all caught up.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is the best part that we're getting towards the end here, so I kind of saved this for the very end. It's a little bit special, and Marlon, you just alluded to it. When I first heard about Marlon Prince, his reputation preceded him, obviously, as somebody who knew muskie in the area. But what really got my attention was this picture.
That was a good day.
Other than the superbly trimmed mustache.
Thank you.
That is a fly
It's in my
the
spot.
mouth of that muskie. Yeah,
That's
that's a
right.
nice spot, Ryan. You like that spot. I like that spot too. But what blows my mind is that you were able to fool this muskie into biting a fly. Now, you didn't do it once. You've done it on several occasions. And you just mentioned that you actually had landed 2 up in Maine. So, I mean, it's already so hard to see one, then to hook one, then to land one. Why are you torturing yourself by trying to get him to go on the fly? Please explain yourself.
Because it's punk rock, man. It's the craziest thing I had ever seen in fishing. I had just gotten into muskie. I had just caught a few muskies on traditional gear. I had never touched a fly rod in my life. I thought fly fishermen were the uppity guys that weren't, you know what I'm getting at. Like I was like, I didn't really have any interest in fly fishing. And then all of a sudden I saw these guys. It was Brad Bowen and his crew in Muskie country in Wisconsin. I saw these guys chucking these homemade, it was just something that I had never seen, that a lot of people had never seen before. And I was like, I fought it for about a week after first seeing it. I was like, that's crazy. You're not going to just all of a sudden up and start fly fishing for muskies. You're nuts. And a week later, I ordered my first muskie. My first fly rod was a 10 weight.
My geez.
Yeah, I spent the winter looking like an absolute maniac in my driveway, throwing around what looked like, half a chicken, teaching myself to use a fly rod. I would watch a YouTube video and run in and put my rod in line by a heater so it would defrost, and then I would go back in the driveway. And honestly, I just got obsessed with fly fishing in general. It took a few years to get back to the gear side of things. I just became absolutely obsessed with fly fishing for salmon, for trout, for smallmouth, and muskie were like, that was the ultimate goal. At the time, there was no muskie Facebook page, no muskie fly fishing Facebook page. There was very little written on it. And I just really thought that was cool. Like I just thought, like I was pretty sure that nobody had ever caught a muskie on a fly rod, at least intentionally, on the St. John River. And to write that book, to go out there and write the rules and talk to some guides from the Virginias, Wisconsin, where these guys were kind of doing the same thing on their waters. I just thought that was so cool. And what are the possibilities? How far can we take this? And that was a learning experience. You develop physical calluses, mental calluses, a lot of tough days, lost fish, blood, sweat, and tears, man. It was quite the adventure. Jason Wilcox, who you mentioned earlier, he was out there with me for a lot of those days on the water. We were kind of doing that thing together, and it was funny. At first, you got a lot of odd looks. I would have boats just pull up to me and spend 20 minutes watching me, and you could just see like the jaws kind of drop, and they'd go, "Does that ever work?" And for a while, I had to say, "Well, not yet," but I saw a video where it does. So, we kind of, I don't want to say we got laughed at, but I can remember the first time at a Muskies Canada event when I came in and someone asked me, "Oh, anything in the boat today?" And they assumed I was going to say no. And I just nodded. I said, "Yeah, we got one." And you could kind of see the heads turn. And the fish started to get bigger. They started to come more often. And it's just, as well, spending the winter developing your fly patterns, coming up with new ideas. Again, there's no rules. This isn't salmon fishing where you're throwing traditional streamers. We're making stuff up every year, developing new presentations.
On that note, I want Ben to show that fly that he had there. Check this out, guys.
Yeah.
This was a concoction last year at Old Tracy Land. It's an 8-shank game changer.
Go higher. Yeah, there we go.
It's about a foot long.
I have to laugh.
2 hours to do.
Oh my jeez.
Okay, I gotta. Marlon, you said when you first saw it, you fought it for about a week because you basically thought that, no, you're crazy. You're not going to do this.
Yeah.
The story that followed. Do you really think at this point in time that you're any less crazy? You're just having more fun.
That's right. I think you got that one right. That's what attracted me to it. It's and hey, it's a struggle to get there, but when you pull the trigger, like I like to say, and set a hook on a muskie with a fly rod, and there's no high speed or low gear ratioed reel between you and that fish. It's a 1-to-1. You're literally playing tug of war with a 4-foot fish. There's nothing like it in the world.
Is that a 10? Is that what is that you're using? A 10 weight, a 12 weight?
I typically use a 12 on the St. John, on the lower St. John or the upper St. John, just because we've got big water here. And honestly, it makes life easier because you're able to put a heavier grain line. For anyone that doesn't fly fish, when you're fly fishing, the line is throwing the fly. It's not the fly throwing the line like it is on a gear rod. You're loading that rod. So the heavier line I can use to load that rod means the heavier fly I can throw, the easier I can punch through wind. It actually makes life a lot easier to use a 12 weight.
Very good. Well, there you have it, guys.
We've got one more question, Ben. It just popped up, and
yep.
Guys, I'll ask you to try to be quick because this one might take an hour of you guys thinking it over. If you could pick one bait for muskie, what would it be?
Who do you want to ask first? They're all thinking.
Let's go to Marlin because I'm guessing for him it's going to be a fly, so that'll be quick. We'll let the other two think for a minute.
Marlin, is that true? Oh, Marlin froze on us. Look at that. All right. We'll get back to Marlin.
Okay, so we won't ask Marlin.
Yeah, he'll come back in a second. I'm going to get him to come off. How about you, Ryan? One bait. You're not allowed using any other bait for the rest of your life. What bait is that going to be? No.
And his audio's gone.
And now your audio's gone, Ryan.
I'm left.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. There we go.
Okay. The bait that I would pick would be a bulldog, regular size.
Bulldog. Very good choice. And you, Ben?
I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Shout out to my good buddy up in Ontario, Bryn Roach. A BR super tanker.
BR super tanker.
Yeah.
There you have it.
I saw a comment in here earlier from Mark Curry saying he caught one on a BR super tanker tonight.
Imagine that.
There's one sitting behind my head somewhere, hiding up there.
Actually, show us. I don't even know what that looks like. What does a super tanker look like?
It is a deep trolling bait. No one take pictures of this.
Oh, because it's so secret. Look at that. And that's a Canadian-made bait?
This is made up in Ontario. Yep. He's a wicked dude. Ryan, Mark, we all have baits from him. His baits produce fish down here. And he's really good guy to deal with. But for putting fish in the boat, it catches a lot of fish, and I have a feeling it's going to catch a really big fish soon.
All right. Very, very cool. Donnie, did you have any questions yourself?
No. Well, I do, but I'm going to hang on just a second. Matt Nason, Jason Wilcox are both saying Silver Jakes in the comments. I'm not sure where Marlin ended up. We didn't get him back to get that question answered on his part. There's still so much we could cover. I'm guessing at some point down the road we're going to do a part 2. Because it's just so much we could really dive deeper into.
Let's be honest. We really just scratched the surface. We didn't get really deep into any techniques or details. But I think it was a mission accomplished to kind of touch base on all the key points that muskie fishing is all about. And I think we got that done. So hey, if you like what you've seen tonight, guys, make sure you comment and you like our Facebook page, and feel free to message us through our Facebook. I'm hoping that Marlon can get back. I don't see him there. I'm wondering if his phone died, to be honest with you. But if he doesn't get back, we do have to wrap up the show. It's been an absolute slice. Ben, any shout outs you'd like to give out?
Shout out to Cassidy and Brandon, and Kat and Belinda. I know they're down in Freddie right now. Hopefully still tuning in. But other than that, to all those crazy muskie fishermen out there watching, or people wondering about muskie fishing, any questions? Like, I'm sure we're all, Marlon, Ryan, and I are all available to answer questions. So,
and if you can't find them
whenever.
individually, message the Fishies page, and we'll make sure your question gets to the right specialist. How about you, Ryan? Any quick shout outs you want to do out?
Shout out to my dad. I saw he was watching there. He commented, "Love you, Dad. Haven't seen you in a while." Shout out to Jason Wilcox, Matt Nason, Mark Curry, Matt Merzrow. Some of my other buddies that I love to fish with. Obviously Ben Thornton and Marlon Prince, two of my best buddies. That's all about it. And yeah, I guess the rest of the muskie community, really. Shout out to everybody.
We spend a lot of time together in the summer.
Well,
we learn each other's true motions.
Oh wait, I'll say Marlon is saying he's coming back now, so we're gonna wait for a few seconds.
Well, we're waiting for Marlon to come back. Like I started to mention, or I mentioned just briefly earlier, Amanda from Minnow. Once again, thank you to her. She's done a great job in supporting and listening to the anglers in our local area. So, couldn't ask for better from a brand new local shop in Fredericton, especially from the muskie perspective, because it is such a specialized thing. So, she sent a big shout out to the muskie community. I think we should just say thank you to her, and a shout out to Amanda at Minnow Tackle Shop.
Awesome. So we got Marlon back. Marlon, Donnie asked earlier a question: if you're allowed to grab one muskie lure that you have to fish with, the only lure for the rest of your life, only one, what would that be?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Where am I fishing on? If I'm fishing on the St. John, it's probably a Jake. As standard as that sounds, and as general of an answer as that sounds, there's probably been more muskies caught on the St. John River on a 10-inch Jake than any other bait.
Very best, very good. And also, sorry, go ahead, Ben.
I get to look at all the tag fish, and Marlon has, and I'm sure Ryan has, but all the tagging study they did, a Jake comes up a lot.
Okay, very best. Marlon, any shout outs before we wrap up the show?
Oh man, there's too many. Shout outs to Pure Fishing for helping me out. Smith Optics. Shout outs to everybody, from Muskies Canada. The guys who came before us, it's been a long road to get these fish starting to be accepted here in New Brunswick and to change the perception on it. There's so many guys: Jeff Swim, Bruce Beaton, Brandon Jones, Steve Eldridge, Clark Rayner, Henry Arsenault. Man, the list just goes on in New Brunswick of people that have helped along the way with this fishery. I'm sure I'm missing a ton of them. There's a ton of custom bait makers from Ontario that help us out. I'll give a shout out to Sean Mayer from Hose Baits, Bryn Roach, DK. Man, the list just goes on and on. I feel bad because I'm probably missing a bunch.
Lydio.
Thank you to everybody that supports us. Thank you so much. It's overwhelming, the support we've gotten in the past couple of years and the interest in this fishery. I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. These fish are still progressing in the river. They're still developing, and we are still developing as anglers here. We're just starting to understand what's going on in this river. I think there's going to be big things to come from the St. John River muskie fishery.
Awesome, man. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time tonight. And like we said before, it's pretty much guaranteed we're going to have to do a part 2 of this to get into the nitty-gritty details. So without further ado, Ben Thornton, thank you very much. Ryan Wickholm.
I called it.
You did.
Thanks,
you
guys.
absolutely did. And thank you very much, Marlon. All right. Well, Donnie, that was fun.
Almost 2 hours in. This is our longest one yet, and I know we could go for another 2.
I got 2 more pages of stuff I didn't even get to yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've got new people just tuning in right now, so they're going to have to go back, and I hope they get themselves grab at this time of night, grab yourself a beverage and sit down, because you've got almost 2 hours of musky knowledge to absorb. I'll probably go back and watch this one over myself, because there was just so much on a new species for me. So
absolutely. And you know what? On that note of shout outs, Donnie, I want to take this opportunity to give a shout out to Tourism New Brunswick and their whole Explore NB. we might have alluded to it during the show, but make no mistake, Donnie and I went muskie fishing and filmed an entire episode doing it in Fredericton on the Lower St. John. We're not going to give away too much. We want you to wait to see it on Wild TV, but let's just say that is one show that I know we are dying to see when it airs. So, shout out to Ryan for that one.
Yeah, I want to see the footage put together because I got one word to describe that weekend, which is roller coaster.
Oh, man, talk about emotion. Marlon talked about hands shaking and knees shaking. Yeah, there was no shortage of that. All right. Hey, Donnie, thanks for being the co-pilot once again. We'll see you on the next one.
As always.
Cheers. All right, folks. Well, here we have it. Wow, 2 hours of muskie madness. I can't believe it, but honestly, that flew by. I hope if you tuned in, you learned something, you took some notes. If not, if you're watching it not live, go back. I mean, a wealth of knowledge from both Ben, Ryan, and Marlon. Of course, a bit, just to circle back. If you're interested in muskie fishing, make sure you check out muskiesnb.ca. It's the local St. John River Muskies chapter for Muskies Canada. Do yourself a favor. Sign up. Attend the meetings, the activities that they have going on, support the muskie movement. For us, it just falls perfectly in line with what Fish East is all about, and that is promoting, of course, multi-species here in Atlantic Canada. Once again, if you're not following us on social media, make sure you do that. Like our Facebook page, check out our Instagram feed. We've got a lot more videos and a lot more content coming your way. And of course, another Fish East live podcast coming to you in 2 weeks. We'll make an announcement soon about who our next guest will be. And on that note, I bid you a very good night. And hopefully you guys can still get out there because there's still lots of great fishing to be had this fall. Hey, I'm Ben Wu, your host. Fish on, Fish East.